Hello, this is going to be video 11.3. It will cover section 511 in your text, and that's going to talk about how to add a score. It will discuss concatenation of strings, and it will show how to use the show text method from the Greenfoot API. If we take a look at section 511 in your textbook, right above that section it says everything so far has been included in WBC3, and so that's the file that I'm going to start with. And I'm going to step through these exercises 530 and actually through about 535. But we're going to add an instance field to the white cell class, and it's going to be to hold that score. We're going to increment the score by 20 when we catch a bacterium, and then we're going to look at how to use this show text method. Some of this code I have already written, so I'm going to go to the white cell class, and I'm going to scroll up to the top. And the first thing that they wanted us to add, exercise 5.3, is to add a instance field. Now, an instance field is used, or a variable that's available for the entire class, and they always start with a private so that we can, what that does is that kind of protects the data so that the data can't accidentally get changed by somebody outside this class. They told us to make it an integer data type and to name it score. And so that's how to set that up. Also, they told us to increment that by 20 every time we touch a bacterium. And so that's in our check collision method. And so if I'm touching a bacterium, I want to change the score by 20. So right here's the line of code that I want to look at. And so I can write this line of code two different ways. One is, as you see on the screen, score is assigned score plus 20 semicolon. Or there's a shortcut method. If I were to replace that code with this, score plus equals 20, that's a shortcut method for adding 20 to the previous value of score. So you can use either method and it will work fine. One other thing that I do want to mention here is that anytime you create an instance field in a class, you need to initialize it. And you do that initialization within a constructor. So I'm going to create a constructor, and our constructors are public so that they can be accessible when we call the method. There is no return type, so there is no void. And inside here is where we initialize all instance fields. It is a good practice to initialize all instance fields in a constructor. And so in this case, we're going to initialize score to the value of 0. Your program would actually work if you didn't do this, but it's not good programming practice not to initialize your instance fields. The other thing I should do is add in my comments that this is a constructor and it initializes instance fields. Now, in our textbook, the next thing it's going to have us do is to look at getting the score to actually print on the screen. Because right now, even though it is scoring, if I go back and I run the game and if I hit compile, and I try to earn some points by collecting bacterium, I don't know if I'm earning any points or not, because when I run the program, if I touch a bacterium, as you see here, there is no indication on the screen that my score is increasing or decreasing. So we want to have some message on the screen, and we're going to put it right up here in the top left-hand corner. So if I go back, and let's take a look at the textbook version of this. We are going to put text on the screen using the show text method. The show text method is a world method. We'll show you where you can find it. It has 3 arguments. Your textbook asks you to find the show text method, and it's inherited from world, but you're not going to find it right away in this list. We have to go to more methods, and then all the way down here I see show text. So show text has no return type, and it takes 3 arguments: a string, an integer, and an integer. Your textbook shows you the format for that here. It's a string followed by an integer and an integer. And the x and y integers are the coordinates where we want the text to appear. And so anything that I put inside there on that show text, if I follow that format, it's going to show up on the screen at the location that's given. Now I have it highlighted out here, but this is what we're looking to do. So I need to display it in the world, and so I have to get the current world with get world, and I'm going to dot. And remember, I could do Control Spacebar to show all the methods that I have available here. Sometimes it takes a while for that to load, but it should work on your machines if you do a Control Spacebar to show all the available methods. It's not liking me right now, so it's not doing it. But I know that I want to use show text, so I'm just going to type it in. Okay, my machine froze because it was trying to load this, but this is what I was talking about when you hit Control Spacebar. It will give you access to all the methods that you can use, and we want to use show text. So if I double click on that, it fills in a template for me. And so the text that I want to use, text has to be in quotes, so I'm going to do the word score, and then they wanted us to place it at 80, 25. And I know this is not exactly like the line right below my screen here. We'll talk about that in a second, but I'm going to compile this and run it and see what happens when I capture some bacterium. So if I put this over here so I can capture some bacteria right away, watch to see what happens when I capture a bacterium. And it's displaying score over here in the top left-hand corner, but again, I'm not seeing the actual values going on here, okay? So I need to do some troubleshooting maybe, and I want it to get it to print the actual score. So you can see down below here where I've added on the variable score. This is what we call concatenation. When I take and add together, I can add together strings, or I can add together strings and variables. In your textbook, it shows some examples of adding together some strings right here. Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, if we concatenate them, it adds them all together. Notice it doesn't include a space, so if I want a space, I have to manually put that in. And then I can concatenate with a variable in order to get everything to look the way that I want to in my white cell class. And so I'm going to add a space, I'm going to add a colon, that's all inside the quotes, and then I'm going to concatenate the actual value for score. And that's exercises 533 to 535. I would recommend that you start kind of doing this to record what exercises you're doing when. That would help me when I'm checking things off. I'm going to delete that line of code because we just retyped it. And we're going to compile and run and see if we can actually get the scores to show up on our screen when we create this project. So it's all compiled. If I hit run and I catch some bacterium, let's see if I can get some points to show up on the screen. And I do. They are right here. So score colon 80 is what I just did with that concatenation. That should wrap up section 511 in your textbook for the most part. And so we were working in Bloodstream WBC3 to start with, and we did most of our coding in, if not all of our coding, in the white cell class. We added a instance field, we initialized the instance field, and then we had the instance field do some actions based upon the fact that it was touching a bacteria. And that should